I just finished watching all of Honkai Star Rail version 2.1's live stream, and here's everything important you need to know that you probably missed. Mind you, some of this stuff is completely subjective to my own opinion, but I'm gonna walk you through it. First up, the final chapter to Penacony story is looking insane. Absolutely bonkers. Aventurine basically pulling his alternate universe self from Genshin Impact all over again, which that's Child, if you don't know who that is. Blonde hair, orange hair, same guy. Then there's Acheron shedding tears of blood as she gets ready to slaughter the entire dreamland. And of course, Gallagher's in the back serving up drinks, which, I mean, he's serving soda because they said it was soda and I guess like Soul Glad, but I'm gonna keep it a buck, that's probably boo. Next up, we got Fate's Ensemble, which is another thing I didn't know I wanted until they gave it to me. Star Rail is wrapping up nicely as a solid RPG with new game elements like this being implemented into everything post 2.0. But I do hope they take it a step further and implement this through the entire game for new players to experience the best version of Star Rail pre 2.0. Because imagine if you're playing Star Rail for the first time and then you go and meet Himiko or Welt and then they go off to do whatever the hell they do and you want to see what they're doing because I want to be a part of Himiko at all times. They even mentioned how Honkai Star Rail is tied directly to Honkai Impact 3's lore and or world. On top of that, there'll be more character stories featuring Acheron that detail exactly that. The world itself looks amazing. Aventurine is a fucking Dungeons and Dragons boss, and I think this is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in the game. Easily one of the most creative bosses in the game that I hope makes it into MOC or any other new in-game like mode. We're also getting some quality of life improvements between version 2.1 through 2.3. Some of those being grinding for a simulated universe in the future will be made easier. They didn't mention how, but they did mention they're working on it and they would release it by 2.3. March 7th, which is pretty big, is getting the same ability to switch her path the same way that the MC does, which, to be fair, might not seem like a big deal because it's just attached to March 7th and they're doing it for like plot reasons or story reasons, I'm sure. But from a meta standpoint, from a character standpoint, and a team building standpoint, if they do it to MC and then they plan on doing it to March 7th, who's to say they won't do this with anyone else in the game? They did make a very clean point to say the starting, like the Trailblazers, right? Your main squad, the Nameless, so that's Himiko, Welt, March 7th, Don Hung, not the dragon, but regular Don Hung, and then MC. I guess Pom Pom's included in that too, but whatever. Point being is that imagine if Himiko gets a whole different path that you could use that's not Erudition, but maybe like Fire Hunt or Fire Preservation. I don't want her to be Preservation, but you guys get what I'm saying. And then of course we have the anniversary itself, which I might make into its own video. I'm not gonna lie to you, the anniversary is just really big overall for Star Rail going into the year of 2024. But for right now, we're getting what, 30 pulls if I'm not mistaken. We might be getting a little more than that. I think it's 20 stellar passes and then 1600 jades being delivered directly into the mail, which is super clean, super awesome. Not only that, but we have to take into account that it's dropping on Acheron's banner. So Acheron coming into the game, all of 2.1, adding all of these fresh jades into the mix. There's 6 events, I think is what it is now, maybe 6 events, something like that. And so the 30 free pools plus the 6 events that we're most likely getting throughout all of, well, actually not most likely, we're definitely getting 6 events or so through 2.1 in just that patch alone. That's more than enough to guarantee a single character from the patch by itself. For what it's worth, I'm real positive this is going to total out to at least 100 something summons that are going to be capable of getting any one player to have. And if you're just starting out the game, boy, this is one of the best times, if not the best time to start Star Rail. But that's all the general stuff that I have going for you guys today that's like less important to me, but it's still important enough for me to mention. For the rest of the video, we're going to talk purely about the characters and what's coming with all of that. Those being Acheron, Aventurine, and then Gallagher. I guess I'm talking about Jingliu and Luocha too, but that's a little tidbit. First up is Acheron, which is my baby girl. I love her in every universe, okay? Raiden, aka Acheron, is my lightning nihility character, which you might be familiar with that path or that combo from Kafka, but they don't work the same way, which I'm super thankful for. Now in Acheron's case, Acheron has a skill which is again similar to Kafka, where it's going to be blast damage. So you're going to be able to hit the main enemy and then the 2 enemies adjacent to that enemy. But what's important about her skill is that it gives her 2 charges of this new thing called Slashed Dream. I think that name is dumb, so I'm not going to call it that. We're just going to call it Slashes or Flower Stacks. Whatever you want to do, just don't call it Slash Dream. Now, Slash Dream is important because that is the only way to guarantee her ult, because guess what? She don't got no energy cost. So this is the first character in the game that has 0 energy. The energy application that we have known Honkai Star Rail for doesn't exist to this character. And on top of that, not only does her ultimate not cost energy, but you also get to pick who gets hit by the ultimate. I know that sounds pretty simple, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm going to target who I want, but that's not what I mean. What I mean by that is her ult is a 4-hitting ult. You hit somebody with ult and then you do it again and then again and then again. Bro, it's beautiful. So the way it works is the first hit, you can choose whatever you want. That's normal. The second hit, you can choose whatever you want, but then it's adjacent. The third hit is also adjacent. You can also choose whatever you want. And then the fourth hit, everyone dies. GG's, don't go next. All of that happens because of her debuff, or rather her talent, which is then the debuff, which the talent is basically the slashes, okay? So whenever a debuff is applied to an enemy, she's going to gain 1 slash, but when she uses her skill, she gains 2. So theoretically, you can get 3 by just having characters line up back to back. Now, something to note that they didn't explicitly state in the live stream, but I do know this just from looking at the live stream. It looks like she's only getting 1 debuff per instance. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if any one action were to happen, right? Let's take Pela, and Pela were to do a thing during this entire action, okay? This one attack action that Pela has, and she attacks with her skill. Her light cone would trigger a debuff, her skill would trigger a debuff, and then let's say you break the enemy, which also counts as a debuff because you're gonna freeze them. That's 3 debuffs technically, so logically you would think, oh, that's gonna give 3 stacks to Acheron, but that's not how that works. It looks like if 1 debuff happens in 1 instance, only that 1 debuff counts towards her charge. So it's gonna be very important for how you operate the teams, how you play the teams, how you're building the teams, all for Acheron's ultimate. And then some of you may not be aware of this until today, but the enemy debuffs, like the bomb exploding the fish, and then it provides defense reduction or whatever it is on top of every enemy that it blows up on. Yeah, that counts as a debuff for Acheron too. So not only does Acheron get debuffs and charges from her own team, but you can also trigger in a way to get debuffs from the enemy. I don't know how to tell you guys this without saying it outright. This character's cracked, borked out of her mind. And I say this very often for certain characters, and it's been a trend lately, but I'm not one of those creators that tells you everything is broken. I've only said 1 character in this game is broken. Everyone else is kind of a little under that, but yeah, Acheron's up there. Her technique is dummy good, stupid strong, if you will, because it just obliterates everything. It auto kills anyone on the field, and I like this a lot. It just fits Acheron all together. Now here's where we get into a little bit of the controversial part, the banner, okay? I understand what I'm about to say is probably going to be considered a hot take, but roll with me, okay? I will fully explain everything, and then I will have like 90 videos explaining it further. So here we go. This banner is an absolute godsend for any Acheron player. Gallagher is going to be a great 4-star option if you cannot or do not want to get your hands on Aventurine. Pela is practically mandatory for any free-to-play, or I should say non-paying / spending player. And the opportunity to get E4 Pela or higher is too good to pass up on if you plan on maining Acheron. Now, I don't know why Don Hung is here, to be completely honest, but it is what it is. Just for a brief moment, I want to talk about the other two, Pela and Gallagher. Now, a lot of you seem to be under the impression that Pela and Silverwolf are the only characters that Acheron works with. That's the only way you're going to be able to get her ultimate or make this character work. She doesn't work the Powerpuff Girls. You can't use her with Bronya or whatever you want it to do. So she's bad and blah. I don't know who y'all have been listening to, but I promise you, whoever it was ain't me. And they're also not. Please stop spreading this. What does Goba say? Misinformation. This is quite literally misinformation. This character does not only work with these 2 specific units. They're just really nice to work together, which is why people keep using them. Pela, nobody should be complaining about using Pela with a character that busts herself, basically, but whatever. That's neither here nor there in this particular video. My entire point being is that this banner is amazing. You don't need to only run her with specific units to get what you're looking for. You just need to open your minds, open your third eye, okay? Look outside of the box, and then you're gonna find out how to build this character, how to play this character, how to operate this character on a specific team that this character is telling you to play her with, and you're gonna have way more fun than what you would do if you tried to force her into a team comp that she doesn't want to be a part of. Now, I've talked about this in a previous video, in fact, like 2 or 3 actually, and I talk about it on stream all the time, twitch.tv/IYOKUU. But point being is that we are moving away from 1.0. Now, some of you seem to be confused. I'm gonna take a brief moment. It's 2 brief moments in 1 brief moment, right? I'm gonna take a brief moment to explain this. I am not saying that we are moving away from only hyper carry, okay? What I am saying is there is a 1.0 way of team building and playing the game that we have been operating on, we as in y'all, not me, that we've been operating on, and the game has been actively moving away from this. This does not mean that hyper carry or dual DPS, DOT, whatever. It doesn't mean that any of these things will no longer function. What it means is they have been steadily developing and making new characters that, and this includes 4 stars, by the way, not just 5 stars. They're developing new characters that don't function the same way that the 1.0 cast does. They don't play the same. They don't want to be on the same teams. And it's a little harder to make these new characters work with the older characters. Prime example is Acheron. Now, of course, we have Silver, who's going to work the way that we want, and then Pela, because they couldn't make Acheron too different. They experimented with that, where I believe Mr. Shaoji was talking about how he wanted to implement a new type of character or a new type of style into the game that would work and not disrupt too many things. In fact, there's a part in the stream where he goes over that specifically, and he says he wanted to really try and make Acheron work outside of the box, which was a perfect or a near perfect example of what I keep talking about and I've been talking about for these past few months. The details of what you can do in the game, something like this is wild. Mr. Shaoji spoke about how they tried to make Acheron not appear on the action bar. That was number one, which technically that already exists. If you're familiar with Himiko's Robot Jones, then essentially the way Robot Jones works would be how Acheron works. Once you achieve a certain criteria, whatever that would be, then Acheron gets to take her turn. And how often you're able to achieve this criteria would then enforce how often you're able to go with this character. Now, on paper, that seems really easy to do, but in a turn-based game where I can abuse the shit out of whatever it is that I'm doing, that might be a little too broken. So I'm pretty sure they're going to find a different way to work that into a new character or a new kit. He then went on to speak about the concept of not having a type at all. Now, whether that meant no path or no type, I'm pretty sure no type is its own thing, but no type, no lightning, no fire, no ice, no imaginary, no quantum, whatever. That in itself is an interesting thing because we already have colorless breaking, which he mentioned that too. He wanted Acheron to be a colorless break unit, which we have in Shui Yi. Shui Yi's ultimate cracks whatever you have, right? It doesn't care. It doesn't matter. Whatever your element is, you're going to take this 90,000% toughness bar. I think it's like 90 actually, but whatever. 90% or 90 toughness meter gone just from whatever you got going on from her ultimate. And then of course, having the Eidolons makes it so that her follow-up attack is able to do that as well. So they tinkered with the idea that Acheron would be able to do that, which is very interesting to me because looking at everything that we have so far, if they were to drop a character like that just did not care, that'd be crazy. Now, I do know some things, but I can't talk about those things. But let's just say if you spend enough money, you could achieve exactly what I'm talking about. And then Gallagher, who I will talk about in his own segment of the video, kind of fits exactly what I'm saying. One of the 4-star options that happen to be a sustain that work in a specific way to operate with the team. He may or may not want to play with every cast, or he may only want to play with a few. Aventurine is another character that we will also talk about here in just a few seconds, just does his own thing, and he does it so well that there's really no reason not to use this character in these specific teams. But before we jump into Aventurine, I want to talk about Luocha's rerun real quick. Luocha's rerun is the rerun for running right alongside Acheron. And I want to say this in the most direct but nicest way possible. If anybody pulls Luocha over Acheron, you are a fool. And I had to change that word because earlier I said something completely different. Luocha is a great character, okay? Let's keep that clean, understood. I'm not downplaying Luocha at all, but he is nowhere on Acheron's level. If it comes to pull value, there's zero reason you should be pulling Luocha on purpose. The way that I described this, and I was talking with some of the buddies, Rihu, Moon, everybody else earlier, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those situations where if you didn't pull this character during that time period, it's gonna be very hard for you to get this character now on a rerun. Why? Because they're gonna keep throwing these reruns on brand new characters that have a lot more interest or a lot more pull value. In Luocha's case, being right next to Acheron, the only reason that you would think you want to pull Luocha is because you don't want Acheron and you want to skip Acheron, or you have whatever. But then they just threw some other crap right after this. You have Robin that got drip fed. You have Aventurine, who is theoretically better than Luocha, but that's a whole different conversation that I can prove in whatever other video. You also have Jing Liu. Jing Liu, you definitely better pull Jing Liu over Luocha if you already don't have a main DPS. So when you look at it from a standpoint that, like, what is it? What do you guys say? Supports are forever, DPS are temporary, something like that. That's just not true anymore, especially in a game like Star Rail, where we've seen the day one DPS character is still a top 5 DPS unit. In fact, every single MOC from day one to now still has Zila in it. The #1 character across the board is Zila. All right, we're just gonna keep that a buck. The stats are there, the statistics are there. Everything about that character is there. And then you trickle down further. So when Luocha's here on the rerun and you have characters like Lynx who pretty much outclass Luocha in any of the preferred teams, and no, that doesn't mean that Lynx is better than Luocha, although I could make that argument. It means that in a team combo, right? In a team-based, it's a team-based game. In your team, Lynx performs the role of a sustainer who's also going to be able to amplify or direct the attacks to your tank that you want them to so much easier than Luocha. And she does the job of healing the exact same. So where you look at it from an SP positive standpoint, because that's what most people use Luocha for, that's great. We now have Sparkle, or we now have teams that operate so much smoother that you don't need to be worried about consuming SP. In fact, I think the only teams that are worried about consuming too much SP are teams that have Imagine Dragon, and you're using him with either Bronya or Sparkle, or even by himself. Actually, you're using Imagine Dragon by himself and you're not playing the team optimally. Those are the teams that I can think of that run out of SP all the time, and they're worried about that. Everyone else should be playing a team where your SP management is totally fine. Run the 4-piece healer set if you're really worried about starting off the game with no skill points. But whatever. Point being is that's a whole different whatever. You guys get what I'm saying. And if you don't, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. I have no issues answering it. Lastly, we can talk about the Light Cone banner, which is absolutely wonderful. I know a lot of you have that same weird thing where it's me versus you here. Light Cone banner is a trap. No free-to-play players should pull on the Light Cone banner. Please, for the love of Lightning Lord. This is not Genshin Impact. It's okay for you to pull on the lightning banner, or not the lightning banner, the weapon banner. You can pull on the light cone banner in this game. It's totally fine. I've watched one of my friends start the game up, and they were very adamant about not pulling on weapon banners because they said it was a trap. They had the same mentality you did. They played the game for about 5 months or so, and then they realized, I need some weapons. Being free to play and just randomly receiving light cones at a whim is not enough. At some point, you need to equip your DPS characters, your support characters with whatever it is they're looking for. You need to take advantage of what the game is offering you. We have free light cones in the Jade shop. Whenever you wish, so many times you can get one of the 5-star light cones from the standard characters. Those are still great options. You have free light cones in the Memory of Chaos shop, where you just play the game enough and you get the 5-star light cones from that. You have the 4-star options from that. And then of course you have better 4-star options from the gacha. And what makes it even better is that they're very frequent on whatever light cone banner it has. In particular, this one, Good Night Sleep Well. A lot of people are saying that if you don't have Acheron's signature light cone, she's not worth it. That's just bullshit. Excuse my language. But it is. It's not a good thing to say. Please stop spreading it around. It's dumb. There are people that have done the calcs already, if you want to see those calcs. And to be completely honest, as a free-to-play player, you don't need to be hitting 1,000,000 damage just because the paid-for player hits 1,000,000 damage. I know that's probably a hot take to you, but that is privilege. They are paying for the benefit, the premium privilege to be able to do that. You, my friend, who's free-to-play, are not. But guess what? You don't need 1,000,000 damage to clear anything in the game. If this character, hypothetically, was still cracking 4 to 600,000 damage with her 4-star alternatives, we'll use Good Night Sleep Well in this case, if she was able to output that same amount of damage, 4 to 600,000 within the same cycle period that I would be cracking 1,000,000 damage, you could kill something in 2 to 3 of those hits and you're good. You don't need the 1,000,000 damage. And so when people say she's bad without it, it's not that she's bad, guys. They're saying that because they privilege, entitlement. I understand this. I'm free to play in a couple of the games. I want big dig damage too. You guys know that from me. So obviously, I'm going to look for the big dig damage no matter how I can get it. In Star Rail's case, if I'm free to play, which I did start a free to play account, so someone's going to be like, oh man, you don't do whatever. I have one. I'll show it next week on stream if you're lucky. Main point being is that I have one. I don't need to hit 1,000,000 damage on a free to play account. I'm still able to clear things without the 1,000,000 damage. It's a-okay. You don't need it. The character's stupid. She's broken. Like she is literally that damn good. You don't need it. Moving on from that though, and going into my non-20-minute rant about Acheron, we now have Aventurine, which is my imaginary preservation kind of guy. And this character's great. His skill is going to be able to basically put preservation back on the map by itself. Skill is going to apply a stackable special shield that allows all of the team members on the team to just not take damage. It's awesome. It's wonderful. The only question that I have that I didn't get to see in the live stream was whether or not this shield has the same properties as other shields, and the shield takes DOT damage for you so that you don't actually take any HP. The better part about this, because we do have shields in the game through Fire MC as well as March 7th, and then of course Japard being the main poster boy for that. In all of their cases, they all have flaws, to say that. In Aventurine's case, there is no flaw. The skill is the shield is the skill. And on top of that, he also has his talent, which once his talent accumulates these stacks for Aventurine, you'll see the 0 out of 7. This is going to trigger a follow-up attack. That's important that I mentioned that. The follow-up attack is going to give you more shield, which then creates an SP positive option, which is now competing with Luocha for an SP positive spot on the team, or an SP positive sustain on the team that keeps you alive. The difference here is Acheron's doing damage. Fuck, not Acheron. Aventurine. Aventurine's doing damage. Now, what did I mention a little bit ago about follow-up attack teams and team synergy and a bunch of other stuff? And I said, if in the event Topaz got a sustained character that just happened to apply follow-up attacks in any way, shape, or form, that would make follow-up attack teams top 3. We are here now, where we are getting that much closer to follow-up attack teams becoming top 3. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because Ratio, Topaz, Aventurine, and then in this case, May, would create a top 3 team where everyone on the team is fulfilling their roles, and Dr. Numby is going 99 times. Well, maybe not Dr. Numby, but regular Numby. But point being is that he's going 99 times. It's awesome. Aventurine's technique is basically Hikari from JJK, where you activate his curse technique to gamble. You get a random defense buff applied to the entire team. The ultimate is roll the dice for a special effect Honkai Star Rail edition. It's single target imaginary damage, and it inflicts a debuff that deals increased crit damage against this enemy, which is basically proof of debt from Numby. So now you have 2 proof of debts, which is like having 2 Numbys do the same thing, but to 2 different targets. You basically just made Numby a Zila. You made him a multi-targeting monster. I don't know how else to put that. Now in Aventurine's case, the banner is okay, right? It's good, but it's good for the wrong reasons. Lynx is a great alternative to any sustain. We just talked about Lynx a little bit ago earlier in the video, but if you're going for Aventurine, then obviously you're not going for Lynx. On the contrary, using Lynx on your second team that doesn't have Aventurine would be a good fit, especially if you're able to get E4 Lynx, because that's going to allow you to do a lot more stuff with Lynx in particular that just makes her better at solo sustaining. Next, you have Luocha, who is great for DOT, but not for Aventurine specifically. Now, Aventurine will work awesome on DOT teams, and Luocha will be really good on most DOT teams because of the whole physical breaking, bleed, and everything of the sort. So they still work together, but Luocha and Aventurine aren't specifically neck and neck. Like, they don't really help each other in that sense. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And then last but not least is, of course, Serval, who is good for free-to-play DOT teams, but again, not Aventurine specifically. There's not much I can say about Serval. So now we get into the really big controversy here that this is like probably my hottest take of the video. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about that, I don't think this is the hottest take. Let me know. But all my hot takes in this video, I could prove without a shadow of a doubt that they're correct. So hot take, but I'm right. Jingliu's rerun banner is 100% a trap. This is a trap banner. Please don't fall for this as a free-to-play player. The reason I say this is it's really hard, right? And this is why I say it's a trap banner. If in the event you know for a fact you're not going for Acheron, you can't go for Acheron, you don't care, or whatever the case may be, you're dead set. You just don't want to play Nihili. You don't want to use these characters that Acheron's telling you to use. You don't want to build around Acheron. You don't want to change up how you play the game or how you team build in the game, which is totally valid. You're more than welcome to do that. Then you can say, I'm going for Jingliu, and that makes total sense. But if you're looking at the most bang for your buck, let me explain to you why Jingliu is not the best option to go for, with Acheron being right before her. All of us make it very clear Jingliu is the #1 DPS character in the game, and when Acheron comes out, Jingliu will be #2. I am not saying that Jingliu is a bad character by any, like Acheron comes out, all of a sudden Jingliu is bad. No, that's not what I'm saying in the slightest. Jingliu's value is still #2, right? Like top 2. She's still up there, top 2, top 3. Jingliu is still up there, okay? And she's not #3. The problem with this in particular is what I explained to you earlier, what I explained to you in a few videos before, and what I'm about to explain to you now. The game is moving away from this 1.0 style of team building or playing the game, whatever the case may be, and they directly told us that. Mr. Shaoji straight up told us, we've been looking at how to develop characters to do different things that are not a part of the 1.0 cast, like to break the game. They're looking at how to make characters break the game, but still barely follow the rules of the game, just to spice things up and make things interesting. If a character is from 1.0, Jingliu, and she's just super strong, a monster, can't deny that at all, versus a character who is 2.0, built around their new team concept, their new idea of breaking the game, but barely following the rules of the game. Why would you limit yourself by grabbing a character that is not doing that? Now, Jingliu is strong for all of her own right reasons, and it's basically her kit, but nothing about Jingliu breaks the game in the same way that something like Swan or Acheron would. If Swan had Jingliu's multipliers, honestly, bro, Swan might be number one. But regardless, my entire point here is that Acheron is a part of the future. And when you pull Acheron over Jingliu, you are setting yourself up for future investment so that in the future, you will have a much longer lifespan for your DPS, because supports are forever, DPS are temporary. That doesn't exist here. So now you're fine. And this isn't saying, again, Jingliu is going to get replaced by Acheron. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, if a new player were to come to me and say, hey, I just started the game a month ago, I have enough for a guarantee, and then because of the 2.1 patch, I'll have enough throughout it to guarantee another character. Should I pull Acheron and Jingliu? Should I pull Acheron and Aventurine? Should I skip Acheron and go for Jingliu and then possibly pull Luocha? What should I do? My advice to them would be, if you could guarantee 2 limited 5-star characters, I would say pull Aventurine and Acheron and call it a day. If you did not want Aventurine because you were going to go with a different strategy, which is a little bit more free to play, Gallagher, or I probably wouldn't tell you to use Lynx, but whatever, Gallagher, right? Or even Lynx, if you decide to do that, then I would tell you, you get Acheron and you get her signature light cone and you're good. The remainder of the year, you don't need nothing else. Find a Silver Wolf somewhere and you're done, just to enable the fact that you can always hit lightning DPS on whatever enemy you want. But Acheron is so strong that she follows the same principles as Jingliu. I don't care what you're weak to, you're still going to take this damage. So ultimately, it does come down to player choice on what they want to do, whether or not they want Jingliu or Acheron, but this is just my personal opinion, and this is coming from the guy who loves Acheron and Jingliu. So I'm not going to set you up for failure. Decide on what you want, make sound decisions, and honestly, you'll probably be okay. In Aventurine's case, though, the Light Cone banner is solid. New 4-star is pretty good for Aventurine, Japard, etc. Shared Feelings is a great 4-star Light Cone option to get to S5, and Serval is Serval. Last but not least is our boy Gallagher, who is pretty quick actually. Single target healing with the booze, or my bad, the Soul Glad from his skill. Pretty standard. Luocha has one, Bailu has one, Lynx has one. Almost all of the Abundance characters have some form of healing you with the skill. What makes some of the Abundance characters a little stronger though is whether or not they can heal you outside of using a skill point, because that makes them SP positive, so they don't have to really do anything on the team besides emergency heal. That's where his ultimate is probably going to come into play, where it turns him into Wolverine and then he slashes every single enemy on the field for AoE damage, and he applies a special debuff that allows your party to heal by hitting them. This is going to come into play because of his talent, where his talent allows any ally or himself to heal when hitting an enemy that has this special debuff. So there's 2 ways to put this debuff on. Number 1 is the ultimate that I just mentioned. Number 2 is the technique, which essentially starts you off the same way as if you were using Luocha's field, and it would do the same thing. I think the difference here is that Gallagher is going to be able to deal out some damage, versus Luocha might not be able to deal out the damage that he did. I don't know, it's weird because he's based off attack percent for his healing like Luocha is, and so Gallagher I feel like would just want attack percent, not because of the healing, but just to do the damage. But honestly, Gallagher is going to be one of those characters that as I said earlier, he's going to fall under a certain niche, a certain role when you're team building. And again, all of the 2.0 characters are falling under a certain criteria, where it's basically how do you want to build this team and who's providing what function. In the end, it really comes down to how you want to play the game. If you're looking at this game the way that I look at the game, which is more so synergistic teams, everyone on the team is using what they want to do and providing a certain function of their kit, and it works very well, and you're not sacrificing a character's kit in order to hyper boost one particular character or completely ignore the other character just for the sake of doing that, then I think you find a lot more value out of a lot of the characters that we do have in the game, especially those coming from 2.0. But if you're looking at this in more of a, I want to continue to play the Powerpuff Girls, then by all means, you can still do that, but you won't see a lot of the value in a lot of other characters. Most players who continue to use a Supreme Hyper Carry or a Mega Hyper Carry, whatever you want to call it, where you have the 3 supports and 1 DPS, they really will never see the value in a character like Gallagher, or even Aventurine for that matter. Some don't see it in Acheron. And I don't want to lie to you and tell you that's okay, because quite frankly, I don't think it's okay, but that is their choice and that's what they're into and how they want to play the game. That's cool. All in all, 2.1 is looking crazy, fanatical, awesome, if you will. I don't know why I use that term, and fanatical is so much better. Whatever, point being is that we're here, okay? I'm super excited for 2.1, if you couldn't tell by my energy that I put into this video twice, because the first one got interrupted and my audio didn't come in. Look, guys, OVS it made me so irate. I was so irate today, but whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Guys, if you do anything, engage with this video. That's not what I wanted to ask you to do. I don't remember what I said to like close out. I know what I said, but I don't remember what I said before I closed out. And you know what? Mods, crush his balls.